All right, we are live. It is 6 o'clock. Caucus is in session. Agenda. Anyone with anything to add this evening? I'd like to add line item number 5, February meetings. Anyone with anything additional? Fiscal officers report.
Just the bills, Ray.
All right, just the bills. Council minutes. Everyone had a chance to review tonight's legislation. Is everyone familiar with the legislation this evening? All right, we're good to go. We're on to line item 5, February meetings. We're looking at Tuesday, February 2nd for committees at 6 p.m. and the meetings being Wednesday the 3rd and Wednesday the 16th at 6 p.m. We good with everybody for those dates? Having nothing further, it's 6:01. Caucus is closed. You guys want to just go ahead and get started? All right. This time I'd like to call to order McDonald Village Council meeting for Wednesday, January 20th, 2021. Roll.
Mr. Harvey,
Here.
Mr. Lewis,
Here.
Mr. Fisher,
Present.
Mr. DeZee,
Here.
Mr. Schmidt,
Present.
Mr. Joins.
Present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'd like to have a brief moment of silence for the troops, both serving here and abroad, and the Lord's Prayer if you so choose. Our Father,
Father,
who art in heaven,
who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy
hallowed
name.
be thy name.
Thy
Thy
kingdom
kingdom
come,
come, thy will be done
on
on
earth as
earth
it is in
as it is in
heaven.
heaven.
Give us this day
this
our
day
daily
our
bread,
daily bread, and
give
forgive
us
us
our
our
trespasses,
trespasses
as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thy is the kingdom, power,
and
glory,
forever.
forever. Amen. Approval of council minutes from January 5th, 2021.
Move to approve as mailed.
Moved by Councilman Fisher. Discussion. Roll.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. DeZee,
Aye.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Joins.
Aye.
Adoption of tonight's agenda.
Move to adopt as is.
Moved by Councilman Fisher to adopt as is. Discussion. Roll.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. DeZee,
Aye.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Joins.
Aye.
Moving on to the mayor's report. Obviously, Mayor Puckett is not with us this evening. He does have an excused absence. He is at his son Kyle's basketball game, so there will be no mayor's report. Moving on to reports of village officials, our administrator, Mr. Dimitrovich.
No official report for the record, but I do want to welcome the new committee chairmen to their positions, and I've already talked to several of them. They've reached out to me, encouraged to work with them, and they've got big plans for 2021, and I hope we all can move forward positively and get some things done. So looking forward to working with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our police chief, Chief Woodley.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. The activity report for the year 2020 has been dispersed to everybody. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them at this time. If not, I have nothing further.
On our fire chief, Chief Stitt. Chief Stitt, you're muted.
knew that. Thank you, Mr. Lewis, but I have no report.
All right, thank you, Chief Stitt. And our solicitor, Mr. Ross.
No report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Moving on to committee reports. President Pro Tem, myself, we met this evening for caucus at 6 p.m. We closed at 6:01, discussed the agenda, fiscal officer's report, council minutes, and legislation. And we did decide upon February meetings to be held with committees Tuesday, February the 2nd, and meetings to be Wednesday, February the 3rd, and Wednesday, February the 16th, all to be at 6 p.m. via Zoom. On to our newly appointed Parks and Buildings Chair, Mr. Joynes.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I did get a chance to talk to Thomas briefly, just introduce myself to the new position. I do want to thank council and mayor for giving me the opportunity to sit in this chair. I'm looking forward to working with everybody involved. Just two quick updates. First one being that the village lobby sounds like it's pretty much getting wrapped up. I did not get a chance to personally see it yet, but I hear good things. It sounds like maybe just some decorating left. But it sounds like Mr. Mills did a very good job down there. And then something in the future here that Mr. Dimitrovich is working on with a program called NOPEC is getting some new lighting in the street garage and the fire garage, which if anybody's been in both buildings is definitely needed. So looking forward to those improvements. Mr. Dimitrovich has been working with Chris Mills to redo some windows in the upstairs of the village building as well. And that's going to be a project that's going to be taking place very soon. So that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to listen.
Thank you, Mr. Joynes. Moving on to our new safety chair, Mr. DeZee.
Thank you, Pro Tem. I have no report at this time.
Thank you, Mr. DeZee. And our new finance and capital improvement chair, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I too would like to thank council's approval to be finance chair this year. I'm excited to be a part of this and get into the finance part of it. So we do have two pieces of legislation this evening, B and C. An ordinance to amend the budget, and item C, emergency reading of a transfer resolution. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. And our service chair, Mr. Fisher.
Yes, thank you, President Pro Tem. On tonight's agenda, we do have a second reading for the sewer rate adjustment. Again, we will meet for committees on February the 2nd. Groundhog's Day, that's an interesting day to meet. Hopefully things won't be the same as last year. But other than that, if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain them.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Our planning commission chair, Mr. Fisher.
Yes, thank you, President Pro Tem. Planning Commission met yesterday evening. That was on January the 19th at 5:15 p.m. on Zoom. Just highlights, the zoning inspector gave us a report of the year-end numbers. We had a total of 72 building permits for a total of $355,226.93. And the fees on those totaling $850. Also, we approved a replat request at 435 East Marshall. That's all I had. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain them.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Community Chest Chair, Mr. DeZee.
Thank you, Pro Tem, and I have no report at this time.
All right, thank you. Moving on to remarks from persons or groups present. We did receive no correspondence. Seeing no old business and no new business, on to legislation. Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. We have a second reading of an ordinance for the purpose of amending previous ordinance number 3176-15 to revise the charges for the operation, maintenance, and replacement costs for the use of the village's wastewater treatment facility and sewage system effective February 20, 2021, which will be reflected in the second quarter billing in April of 2021.
Move to suspend the rules of council.
Moved by Councilman Fisher to suspend the rules of council. Discussion. Roll.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. DeZine,
Aye.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Joines.
Aye.
Okay, move to waive the 3-read process and pass on the second and third readings.
Moved by Councilman Fisher to waive the 3-read process and pass on the second and third reads. Discussion.
Village Administrator, did you want to add anything onto this?
No, not much, but thank you for your support on this. Again, we did go back and look at the numbers after we had a significant carryover in that account, and we're looking for good things to happen. And again, just passing it and applying it at the proper time for the residents. Thank you.
You. Roll.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. DeZine,
Aye.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Joines.
Aye.
Legislation passed.
Ready for me?
Sorry,
All
Mr.
right.
Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. We have a second reading, or excuse me, we have an emergency reading of an ordinance to amend appropriations for 2021 to various divisions of the village government for each of the several objects for which the village of McDonald, Ohio has to provide out of the monies known to be in the treasury of said village during the year from the collection of all the taxes and from all other sources of revenue for 2021.
Move to suspend the rules of council.
Moved by Councilman Fisher to suspend the rules of council. Discussion.
Just
Mi-
that was
Mr.
Councilman
Councilman Schmidt.
Mr. Schmidt.
Mr. Schmidt, sorry. Discussion.
Oops.
Roll.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. DeZine,
Aye.
Mr. Joines.
Aye.
Move to pass as emergency.
Moved by Councilman Schmidt to pass as an emergency. Discussion. Roll.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. DeZine,
Aye.
Mr. Joines.
Aye.
Moving on to legislation C.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. We have an emergency reading of a resolution transferring funds within various funds within the village of McDonald, Ohio for a period beginning January 1, 2021 and ending December 31, 2021.
Move to suspend the rules of council.
Moved by Councilman Schmidt. It was the hair that got me last time. To suspend the rules of council.
I know how that could confuse you.
Discussion.
Yeah, just briefly here. These transfers are done to just to increase the fund amounts, just so that we're in line with the spending of our budget for the year. So
Roll.
Mr. Schmidt,
aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. DeZine,
Aye.
Mr. Joines.
Aye.
Move to pass as an emergency.
Moved by Councilman Schmidt to pass this as an emergency. Discussion. Roll.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. DeZine,
Aye.
Mr. Joines.
Aye.
Resolution passed as an emergency. Moving on to our fiscal officer's report. Mrs. Canada.
Thank you. I, Lori Canada, Fiscal Officer for the Village of McDonald, Ohio, do hereby declare that the bills are true and correct in the amount of $233,417.46, and the money is in the bank to pay them.
Move to accept the VFO's report and pay the bill as stated.
Moved by Councilman Schmidt to accept the VFO report and pay the bills. Discussion? Roll.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. DeZine,
Aye.
Mr. Joines.
Aye.
Moving on to miscellaneous. And motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Again.
Motion to
Motion
adjourn. Yes.
Moved by Councilman Harvey to adjourn. Discussion? Roll.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. DeZine,
Aye.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Joines.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned.